All right, guys. Welcome to an online portion of ELN 260. So I just want to give you guys a run through, and you need to build this along with me. So when we're building it, what you want to do is make sure you're in NetLabs from home, so you can build it along. Because when you come in next week, you're gonna load it in here, and we're gonna wire it up. So if you're in NetLabs, go on and click on Studio 5000 and this menu will pull up. If you're not in NetLabs, go on and pause the video until you get into NetLabs and get it pulled up. Alright, new project. We're going to left click there. It's going to open up a project pane. Now, I'm not sure how it'll look if this is the first time you're logging into NetLabs. It may look like this, it may look like this here. More than likely, it's going to just have the logics here. Now, when we're on this menu here, what we want to do is we want to choose the Compact Logix 5370 controller. So you say, how do I know that? Well, the way I know that is if you're in the classroom and we went and looked at the controllers, we would know that it's a 5370 series. And then on the front there, it would show us that it's a 1769L30ER. So make sure every time you're building a project in Studio that you're choosing the 1769L30ER. I will go over this in class, and I have briefly touched on it before now, but this is something that you need to choose every time you set up your project. Alright, so let's just call it first project. Notice how it gives a underscore there. The reason for the underscore is it doesn't allow the syntax doesn't allow the spacing, so it makes you use the underscore, but it does automatically put it in there. You used to have to do it if you did any spacing when we were doing RS Logix 5000. So first project, don't put a 1 because it's not going to work. Just type out first project, hit next. Alright, the revision here is 32. We're not going to change that. We don't want to add any protection, but if we did, this is where we would do it. So let's click finish. And it'll take a second and we'll load. So today what I want to do is basically show you how to create a program, number one, and then show you how to write a few lines of code, number two. And then when we get back into the classroom next week, we are going to wire it up. Alright. So just takes a minute here. You can skip forward if you want to while it's loading. And then once it loads, I will go back to it. Alright, here it comes. It almost forgot about us. I thought maybe we were on the bucket list or something. I don't know. This thing just didn't want to cooperate. I don't know. This thing's probably doing a scan. I should have checked it before I started trying to use the computer this morning, but I'm sure it's doing some kind of scan and all my RAM's getting used up, so I don't have any RAM to do anything. But it shouldn't be this long on your end. It's normally not this long on my end, but I would be willing to bet if I checked my RAM at this moment, it would show me that it's all but used up because it's doing some kind of security scan that I wish it would do at night instead of during the middle of the day or in the morning when we're getting ready to have class. All right. Any day now. Any day now. Yeah, I'm almost certain this thing's doing a scan as slow as it's running. All right, so beyond that, Once it quits loading or finishes loading, we have our project open. Okay, so just a brief rundown on everything. Up here at the top, we have like a menu. So on our menu, it may not be bacon and eggs like everybody wants, but we got the file button. Under file, one of the only things you're going to use under here is maybe new or open. You could close. If you're doing this for the first time in the classroom, we often use the close function when we're setting up our communications with FactoryTalk, because it has us set up initially with RS Links Classic. Save as, that's kind of what we want to do. We're going to want to change or save our files as two different files. First file, ACD file here, okay, and then the second file is going to be a star L5K, so an import export file. So when you save this as an ACD, you're going to hit save, and then you're also going to save it as a import export file and hit save. Now both of those files will need to be loaded up into Moodle. You may be asking why we're saving as an import export file. Well, if there's a revision change, and let's say that like you need to get back to a program, so you're starting out in PLCs and we're in revision 32, but you want to get back to the program you built, and now you're in PLC 3 and we're in revision 34, right? So that file you have will not be able to cross revisions unless you do it as like an import export file. So that's why. Edit, you can undo some things here. View, I don't really use view function much. Now the controller organizer is this guy that's here, so if you were to lose it, accidentally click it off, just click on view or press. It looks like you could do hotkeys of Alt plus 0 and it would pull it up. Search, not really used too much for me. Logic, you can go here to monitor your tags or edit your tags. I'll also show you up here how you can do that. Communications is a big one. So this is where we're going to go online, download to the PLC. We got to create a path through whoactive here. Tools, just your normal stuff that probably won't use much of. Window, I guess this is just open up and close new windows, and then help. So if you needed some help or some documents, you could go in here and look for some instruction help. So let's just say you wanted to know what an XIC is. So you click on help, and when it finally pulls up, you can search that function and it'll tell you about some of the instructions. So there we go. So you have ladder diagram, function block, which we probably won't cover in this first class, but we will in the second. Sequential function chart and structured text. So we'll probably do some structured text and some ladder diagram in the second class. So you have bit instructions, because that's normally what you're going to be doing is your bit instructions. So let's just say you don't know what an XIC is. You can go down here and click on it, and it'll tell you like what it looks like right here. It's not available in function block. It's not available in structured text, and it just tells you that it's a data bit. The data type is a Boolean. It's formatted by using a tag, and the description of what it is it's a bit to be tested. There are various operand addressing modes possible for the data bit. All right. So major and minor faults. Execution in the ladder diagram, so it says a pre-scan is not available. Run condition in is false. Set run condition out of run in condition. If it's true, it tells you if the data bit is true, the run condition out is set to true. If the data bit is false, the run condition out is cleared to false. And we'll talk a little bit more about that kind of stuff. There's an example of it on a ladder diagram here, so you should have seen something like this. And then there's another example of it with a move instruction beside it. And then just some other little bits of information there. So that is under the help menu. All right. First things first, we always have to add in our modules when we create a project. So we're going to go up here to the bus. I'm going to right click and do a new module by doing a left click. Alright, once this is pulled up, I always like to uncheck the different module types here. Alright, then I go down to digital. Alright, and Rockwell Automation, Allen Bradley. You can leave this checked where all of them pull up, but it's just preference, you know. The first thing we want to do is we want to add in our input module. Now, if you were to open up the door on the input card, you would, and I say add in our module, but we're adding in our input and output cards because they're not already pre-configured. So on this 1769 IQ16, which is a 16.24 volt DC input sync source card, this is the one that you would add in first. So we would hit create here. You say, how do I know that it's IQ16? Well, you open up the door on the card, and down at the bottom it gives you that number, 1769 IQ16. Hit create here. This is somewhere you can name it. I'm not going to name it. You could name it if you wanted to. It automatically pulls in some of the series and stuff like that. The big thing to check right here is your slot, okay? So it has to be in slot 1, only because that's where it's at in the classroom. If you were out in the field, it could be in slot 2, 3, 4, who knows? But ours is in slot 1. This is why I asked you to add it first. That's the biggie, okay? So slot 1 there. Now, go down here. We're going to find the OB16. That's going to be our output card. This needs to be in slot 2, all right? So in slot 2 is that output card. And then lastly, we have a analog card, which we're not going to add, but we do have the analog card here, which maybe by the end of the semester we'll start adding in, but you do not have to do that at this time. Once we have our inputs and our cards in, what we're going to do is go over here to task. We're going to go on the main program, and we're going to click on the main routine. All right, that's going to bring up a ladder diagram here. Okay, and then we're just going to go over a few things and add some new tags in and add in some new rungs. All right, so this week what we're going to do is we're going to just create some push buttons. Right, so I have looks like 3 push buttons, 2 toggle switches, and a stop button. All right, I want everyone to use the syntax that is on the Festo trainers, which I'm going to show you here in this video, and create all their tags. All right, so I like to personally create all my tags before I start to work. And the reason I like to create all my tags before I start to work is because when I get to thinking about how the logic's flowing, I don't want to have to be creating tags. So that's just my preference. That doesn't mean that's how you need to do it. It's just my preference. So the way we create a tag is several different ways. I'm going to show you the way I like to create a tag. I like to just right click over here on controller tags and do new tag. Now there are local tags here that you could create. You could create these in local tags. I just prefer controller tags, but it does the same thing. Alright, if you wanted to do local tags, you could change this from first project here in the scope to down in the main program there. Alright, so our first tag is going to be S1, right? So that's very descriptive. No, not really. So we need to put in a description here. Our S1 is going to be the green push button on Festo station. Alright, so now somebody comes behind me, they're like, oh, what's S1? Oh, this is the green button on the Festo station. Alright. All of these tags that we're going to make today are going to be aliases. Okay, so down here where it says type, we're going to choose alias. Alright, and it's going to ask us what it's an alias for. This is why you have to add in your modules or your input-output cards before you can actually do that. And just give me 1 second. Sorry about that, guys. So we're gonna create a tag here, and we're doing an alias tag. So these are going to be inputs that we're creating first. So our input's going to be local 1 input. So the local there means it's local to the controller. The 1 means it's in slot 1, and then the I stands for input. When we down click on that, what we want to do is use the drop down arrow here, okay, and then we're going to go to data. So we're going to click on data here. And once we click on data, you're going to get another drop down, and then you're going to see it's an integer. Alright, so we're going to just use the first one we see. And you could have used number 15, it doesn't matter, but we're just going to use number 0. Alright. Boolean, data type, not going to change. Alright, so we've created that tag. Alright, let's create all our tags. So another tag we need to create is S2, and that is the white push button on the Festo trainer. Again, this is going to be another alias. It's going to be an alias for local 1 input data 1. Great. Alright, I'm going to create another tag. S3. Alright, that's going to be, looks like a blue push button on Festo trainer. I'm going to make that an alias for local 1 data 2. Hit create. I'm going to do another tag. I'm going to call this S4. And this is a toggle switch for our own Festo trainer. And all this stuff is labeled on the Festo trainer as I'm naming it: S4, S3, S2. Still going down to local 1 data, just choosing the different data keys here. I'm going to do S5 now. So it's another toggle switch on the Feston trainer. Alias local 1 input data 4. Great. And then lastly, on our inputs, we're going to use S6. And this is a E stop on the Festo trainer. Alright. Alias local 1 input data 5. Alright, that is our tags, okay, for our inputs. Now we might say, well, where do they go? So right here under, where was it, logic, you could monitor your tags, edit your tags, but I always just like to right click up here and then go into monitor tags. Again, it doesn't mean that I'm right or faster or better. It's just the way I like to do it. Okay, so there you go. You can see all our tags here. All right. You can create the tags on this screen. So let's create a few output tags. I want to create a P1. All right. P1 is a green light. Green light on the Festo trainer. This time we're not going to choose local 1 input, we're going to choose local 2 output. So you have local 2 consumed, local 2 input, and then local 2 output there. Alright, so we're going to do local 2 output, we're going to choose data, and we're going to go with 0 again. Alright, so hit create, and you see our P1 down there. New tag, let's do another new tag. We're going to do P2. P2 is a white light, so it's a white light on the Festo trainer. It's going to be an output again. Remember, push buttons, switches, things of sensors, they're usually inputs, lights, motors, controllers. Something that does something are usually outputs. All right. So there we go, P2. And then another new tag, I'm going to use P3. All right, what is P3? P3 is going to be the blue light special from Kmart, right? No. It's the blue light on the Festo trainer. It's going to be an alias. It's going to be an alias for local 2 output data 2. All right. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inputs and 3 outputs. Somebody might be saying, why don't we have the same amount of inputs and outputs? Well, that doesn't matter, okay? So you can have 1 output and 5 inputs and it'll still be all right. The problem you run into is if you have more outputs than you do inputs. Okay, so go back to your main routine by double clicking here, and then now what we're going to do is we're going to start adding in our bit instructions. Okay, so this is our rung. It's telling us automatically here, hey, you know, it's red, it's X, you got a problem here. One thing we need to do is add in some instructions. So I'm going to choose an XIC. All right, and then I'm going to choose an output energize. Drag it down. I'm just left click, dragging it down to those little green marks there. On the question mark, I'm going to double click, and the first one I'm going to choose is S1. All right, the second one I'm going to choose is P1. And now I have a complete rung. All right, I want to, when I come back to class, wire this up. Okay, when I wire it up, I'm going to check to see if it runs, and if it runs, I'm good to go. All right. Now, one thing on this rung that I do want to add is maybe let's just do a stop button, right? But do we need a stop? Well, not necessarily. In this case, we don't need a stop because we're just wanting to turn on the light and wire it up as we push it in here, okay? Let's add a new rung down. So I've grabbed this little first piece right here. Let's add that rung now. Let's go on and add in S2 and throw down P2. Now you can double click and do the drop down, or you can just type it in if you remember it, P2, and it'll pull it up once you hit enter. All right, now let's do another rung. We got that thing there. Let's do S3, and then P3 here. All right, so now I have 3 inputs and 3 outputs. All right, but what some of you may say is, well, we still got 3 inputs we didn't use. That's okay, you know, it's all right. At this point, what I would like everybody to do is you would come into the class once you get this portion built, and you would wire it up. All right, once it's wired up, you would check it and make sure that it actually works. This is going to be what I would like for you to finish between now and next week. It's not going to take a whole lot of time. Once you get it completed, you bring it into class, we're going to build off of this. Okay, so next week we're going to do some more Logix Pro, and then we're going to use the we're going to do some Studio 5000 and get you wiring up and getting used to how a PLC wires. Okay, this is pretty simple. Like I said, we're just wanting to show you how the inputs and outputs come on, and then there we go. The last thing you need to do is you need to make rung comments. So I'm going to do edit rung comment here, and when I do that, you've got all this room to make a rung comment. And let's just say that input S1 is pressed, then light P1 turns on. All right, and then hit enter. You can click down off of it. Now you have your run comment right here. Input S1 is pressed. The light P1 turns on. Now, just make your own comments pretty, just descriptive of what's going on. It doesn't have to be like over descriptive, but you just want to make sure that you're describing the process, because somebody's going to come behind you and they're not going to know what you did here. All right, so the best way to do it is just try to be as descriptive as you can. Don't forget, save this file, save as, first project. All right, I like to just save it on the desktop, so I'm going to just hit save. It's probably going to ask me if I want to overwrite it, maybe not. And then don't forget to save as again as your L5K there, save. Okay. Ask me, did it already exist? Now next week when we come back, after we wire this up, we will probably stay in Logix Pro, and then we'll add to this weekly. Okay, so I'm going to have a video for us to add to this. So when we come in for the next week, we're going to actually just add on to it every week. All right, until we get used to using it. That's going to be all from me. Have a good day.